Chapter 2. Merrick. I screamed as it pinned me to the ground. I kicked, tried to fight, but I couldn't move. "Hush," the boy on top of me said. "Don't move. They'll hear us." I didn't know what he was talking about. I stared up at him. His eyes were brown, his skin tanned and smooth, and he wore a green tunic. "Who are you?" I managed to say. He leaned down and brushed my hair out of my face. "I'm Merrick, and I'm going to protect you." Merrick rose slowly from the ground and stood in front of me. Surprised, I sat up. Adam had mentioned the guy in the woods. He seemed to be about our age, but there was a wildness to him. A danger. "I'm Scarlet. Who do you mean is out here? Who are you afraid of?" "Not scared," Merrick said. "More like worried. Wolves." "Wolves?" "Yes," he said, frowning. "They're out here tonight. Even the deer know. They're looking for places to hide." I looked for the basket I'd been carrying. It was gone. "Where's the basket?" I asked. Merrick looked around. "Someone stole it," I exclaimed. He lifted a hand. "No, not stolen. It likely rolled under a bush, but we should hide. I hear them coming." Merrick led me to a spot under some bushes. We crouched down and he pulled the branches back so that we could see. All I could see were paws. Big black paws. But they weren't moving. I stifled a cry. "Shh," Merrick whispered in my ear. "They will find us if we make any noise." I swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Merrick turned to me. His dark eyes shined. "Stay here. I'll lead them away." I nodded. "How?" "I'm fast." He leaped into the air, flying toward the wolves. He was faster than anything I'd ever seen. He streaked across the clearing, leaping over the fallen trees and shrubbery. Within seconds, the wolves chased after him. My heart went wild. Merrick! I was worried the wolves would catch up to him and eat him. I remained alone under the bush, afraid to come out. After what felt like ages, I peeked out. No one was there. The wolves were gone. I crawled out from under the bush and looked around. Merrick was nowhere to be found. I did eventually find the basket. It had rolled off, thought the contents were still intact. Should I keep going? I was closer to grandmother's house than the village. I decided to keep going. I walked along the path, listening for more noises in the woods, but all I heard was birds chirping and the occasional crackle of leaves as a squirrel skittered through the brush. Grandmother's house was quiet and small. She had an herbal garden outside. The scent of rosemary and basil carried to my nose. Inside, her home was cozy, with lots of pillows on a small couch. Her bedroom had a canopy bed and a dresser with a mirror. A wooden chair sat beside the window. A quilt was draped over the frame of the door. "Grandmother?" I called out. "Are you home?" No answer. "Grandma?" I called again, louder this time. Still no answer. I searched the house for signs of her. I found a journal on the table, which made me feel better. I read the page that was open. Grandmother had written about how well the tomato plants were doing this year. I stood up and went to the kitchen. I put away the food from the basket I carried. Outside, noises came from the garden. I stepped outside. The herbs in the garden grew tall and strong. They were spread throughout the yard, interspersed with grass and flowers and a veggie patch in the back. I could hear the sounds of water running nearby. I followed the sound, discovering grandmother watering a particularly dry-looking plant. "What is that one?" I asked her. I never saw it before. "It's a thyme," she said. "Thyme is good for wounds." She tilted her head a little and winked at me. "And it helps with memory." "Memory?" I asked. "Yes." Grandmother's wrinkled smile was warm and soothing. She wore a thin tan dress, and her white hair was tied back in a bun. "Can I ask you something?" I asked grandmother. "Did you hear about wolves in the forest?" She nodded. "What about them?" "There were a lot of them." "Yes, a pack of them. They've been spotted near the woods." I nodded. "Maybe you should come stay with us for a while. You're so far away from everyone." Grandmother shook her head. "I'm fine. Besides, I'm too old to move anywhere." "Won't you for a little while?" I asked her. "Until the wolves move on? It isn't safe." "I don't think they'll leave anytime soon. The pack is big enough. And they're hungry." Concern etched into my heart. "All the more reason to leave the forest." Grandmother chuckled. "The forest is my home." I wanted to argue with her, but I knew she was stubborn. If the wolves stayed too long, it could lead to danger for the entire village. "How do we get the wolves to leave?" I asked. Grandmother sighed and stood up straight. "You can't do anything. The only thing you can do is pray. Pray? I asked. That doesn't seem fair. There has to be something that would draw the wolves away from here. Grandmother shook her head. Nothing. My heart broke inside. Then what can we do? I asked. Go home. Wait it out. She stopped her gardening. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. But you should go home before it gets too dark. I didn't want to leave her. I wanted to stay with her and help her, just like she helped me when I first moved to the village. I'll come back tomorrow, I told her. You shouldn't be alone. If you won't come to the village, I'll come check on you every day, at least until the wolves leave. I smiled, but grandmother frowned. What's wrong? I asked her. She sighed and rubbed her forehead. I don't know if I should let you. Wolf packs are unpredictable. I followed her back to the house. Grandmother? Do you know Merrick? She shook her head. Who? I found him in the woods. He seems very strange. Adam said he was friendly. Grandmother shrugged. I know nothing about him. It was odd she lived in the woods and didn't know anything about him. Didn't he live out here somewhere too? I needed to find Adam. I told grandmother I'd be back tomorrow. There had to be a way to get the wolves to leave.